Hello everyone, I'm Lydia Ruth. Welcome to the Manse. Before I begin, please go to the link in the description box if you're viewing this from YouTube. Click on that and it will take you to the page on which I have embedded this and the post, and you can read the rest. You can also leave comments over there on the blog, and you will also see some links and some pictures of the inside of my house. I'm sitting in my little sewing room right now. I've made a little place to sit down, and I have a few things to show you today and to think about also. But before I get too far along, here's my cup for today, and it kind of has that peachy flower in that goes with the blouse that I'm wearing. I always like to match my cup every day to what I'm wearing, and I exist to share with you how you can be a homemaker and wear pretty clothes at home and still go out and not have to change your outfit. And I have shown you in past posts how you might do that. For example, I look kind of dressed up in this outfit, but you will see on the photographs that I include on the post that without these are just homemade stretchy beads someone's child made for me, and they're custom made, so I like them. And I have a friend whose daughter likes to use the pony beads, and I've asked her to make a set in each color that go with my outfits, and I can wear them at home. They're not going to be ruined. I don't have to worry about a pesky clasp in the back, because she uses the stretch stuff. It's so much fun. And when we were children, I don't know if any of you remember, back in the early 1950s, we could make our own jewelry out of anything. We used paper. We'd roll up paper. We'd put string through it. We would dip the paper in a colored paste. My mother made paste with flour and water, and then she put a little food coloring in it to give it color. And we did all kinds of things with that paste. But I'm diverted. I'm excessively diverted. And so today somebody asked me if I would show them how to make that pumpkin. I'm going to start out by saying that you don't need to measure anything. You just need a piece of fabric that's square. And then you I got this at the dollar store. It's bathroom tissue. And you set that in the middle like that. You take the corners and you stick them in to the hole in the middle, like that, and like that, and like that. It obviously has to be big enough to be able to do that. And then you just leave it all kind of irregular and gnarly, and you pick, if you have some of these cinnamon sticks from the Walmart, see there, cinnamon sticks, you put a cinnamon stick in it for the stem, and then sometimes you'll have a little piece of floral that comes off of a fake flower or a package someone gave you or something. I save all those little things, and then you can stick that in with it. Now, another thing you can do is you can also get this at the dollar store, and you make a tiny little apple. This is string, and you just leave the covering on it, and you do the same thing. You set it in a square of fabric. You don't have to even, in fact, it's better not to have it circular. You just kind of know whether it's going to be enough or not, and then you just tuck all this into the middle like that. Stick your cinnamon stick in, and there you have an apple. And of course your little leaf there. And then of course you don't have a bunch of stuff to store away. You just take it apart, put it all back, and you don't have to have all this decor around. But I do want to show you one of my finds at the dollar store. Now the dollar store is no longer $1. They have a whole shelf of $5 items. So I wanted to show you this for those of you who don't have a fireplace. It's battery operated. I believe it's AA batteries, 2 AA batteries in it. And there you have your little fireplace. And I enjoy these because I can have one in each room. They don't give out any heat, but it just has such a feeling of warmth with it, and I enjoy it so much. And so let me just go on with a few more things that I can show you. Pumpkin pie spice and apple pie spice. All it has in it is cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, ginger, and cloves. And the apple pie spice is somewhat the same. So instead of a teaspoon of each in whatever you're making, the apple pie or the pumpkin pie, you could make up your own little jar or cup of this just by using cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice, ginger, and cloves. There's no mystery to pumpkin pie spice or apple pie spice, but I quite like the fact that I don't have to get out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little jars and measure out a fourth a teaspoon of each for the pie or a teaspoon each. I like having it all together, and when this is empty, I'll just make up my own with the rest of the stuff. This is also from the dollar store, $1.25. And it's the same brand as you'll find in some of the grocery stores. Where shall I go from here? Okay, I had promised you something about men's clothing and men dressing well. Now here in the Northwest where I live in Oregon, and possibly all across the country of the U.S., and I believe maybe England, Australia is the same, the general uniform of a working man is a button-down plaid shirt with jeans, maybe a belt, a pair of really good sturdy boots of some kind. They're not wearing the lace-up boots quite so much. I guess laces could get caught in things, and but other kinds of fasteners, and a hat, one of those baseball hats, and that's considered quite well dressed up. Sometimes I wonder if the men in Congress turned up in some of the things the women wear, we would have an absolute fit, wouldn't we? If the men in Congress are buttoned up to here, well, so are the working men out here on the farms. They're buttoned up to here. But if they went around showing as much as some of the women do, we'd just have a fit, wouldn't we? And if they wore really, really, really short pants, we would absolutely have a fit. And so it's so hypocritical, the women that want to show off a lot of leg, a lot of bareness and everything, but they expect the men to dress decently. And we do want to teach both our boys and our girls to cover more of their bodies than they show. So the minimal amount of flesh is showing. You're going to have your hands, you're going to have your face, maybe your feet. And I would like to say something about women and long clothing. I don't know where we got the idea that we have to, especially at my age, that we must show the calves and the front of our lower part of leg below our knees or even above our knees. Where did we get the idea that that was a healthy thing to do? And when I was growing up, we wore jeans, or we wore something similar to leggings, but always under our dresses, and the dresses covered the jeans or the leggings. And I don't know what the big deal is now, but ladies my age are going around showing off their calves, and they're not in great shape. So you want to dress in such a way that it's absolutely inspiring and edifying to everyone. Have a look at yourself before you leave the house. Have a long mirror so you can look behind you. Have a look and just analyze, how is this edifying someone? Is this taking someone's mind off of my, how women always claim they wanted to be liked for their mind? Is this taking someone else's attention off of my mind? And so where we minister is through our eyes, through our faces, through our countenance. And remember I discussed countenance before, and one of the first references to countenance was when Cain, just before he killed Abel, was chastised by God, saying, if you do right instead of wrong, your countenance will be lifted up. And countenance, I take to believe, is the way you look, your face, your cheerfulness, your eyes. When your countenance is lifted up, you look happy. That's basic thing that I taught my children, and you could go deeper into it if you wanted to. But let's look at man in demand right now. And I'd just like to encourage you all to dress up for your day at home. You can always put an apron over it. I have clothes that I must have had for 30 years because I wore aprons over them. Very little had to be done. I repair them. Sometimes I re-dye them if I like them and I can't replace them. So I want to be sure that you have everything that you need. With I have a couple of things I wanted to read you. It seems to be that I have. Oh, there they are. Okay. So before we go on, I want to show you something in the Book of Looks here. And this was called the Book of Looks, but I would not recommend it for you if you have young girls at home. Some of the outrageous designs might have, if you think your daughter has good sense, it's okay to get this book. My daughter read it and she didn't want to wear some of the wackier outfits, but there was one in here that I just loved, and I always thought it was the ideal, and it's called The Shepherdess. I'll try to get a picture of that for you because it just transcends all the eras of time. It could be worn. This was printed in the 1980s, and it could still be worn today. And I remember that blouse pattern might have even been a Laura Ashley pattern, as a matter of fact. And I wanted to show you that because I want to talk a little bit today about shepherds and about shepherding and how important ancient shepherding and what it means to me. Let me see what happened to my book here. So let me go through. This book here is called Man in Demand. If you want to have a good study book, it's not just study, but it's a good looking book that you can that boys can go through little by little and absorb. Now and then there's an attitude towards boys and young men that they don't need to be taught like the girls do. But that's just a very bad attitude, and I've seen young boys, young men make fun of this book. But this is nothing to laugh at because it talks about how the way you dress can affect the way you stand. I have told you this before as ladies at home. The way you dress can affect your countenance. It can affect the way you think. Isn't that interesting? And I find this throughout Scripture. I went back one time and started in Genesis and ended in Revelations, where I explained, one of my first videos, all the references to clothing and what the meaning of some of it was. A color had a meaning to it. Some of it was more dignified and respectful. Other types of clothing meant other things, and how important it is to understand color and texture and everything like that. It also will help you in your home decor when you start to understand the effect of texture and color and arrangement. It's the same with clothing, and I find those who like to coordinate their clothing also tend to be, their brain is more settled. And that's why I show you sometimes a pair of shoes that I wear with something, or a pair of gloves, or something that goes with, because it makes me feel settled. And since I'm home, I can do what I want. I can wear what I want. No one's going to say, where are you going? Are we having company? I wanted to mention that too, because are we having company? There have been times when women they only clean house and they only dress up when they're having company, so the children will say, we must be having company. Mother cleaned the whatever. And I wanted to not do that. I wanted to make sure that every day they were my company and I was getting ready for them. So if they said, is someone coming over? Because I was rearranging or cleaning, I said, you're coming over, you're here, you're my guest. And that I made them know that the home was the exclusive settlement for them, that this was for them. Anytime we got anything new, piece of furniture or anything, it was for them. Our doors were all open. They could wander in and out of all the rooms unless there was some kind of danger, like if there was a step going down or something like that. And So I would really recommend this book. I'm not going to read it to you because it was written by a different author, and I don't want to read it aloud because it's mostly drawings, and the drawings are very easy to understand for a young man. But I would not just hand him this book. What I would do is sit down with him and read it with him, because he is going to someday want to be suitable for a very special young lady, and this will help him. And the mother is probably going to be the one that has the most time to study this. I think sometimes the men don't want to read this kind of thing, but the women, you know, you have great power to guide the young men in your home. Man in Demand by Wayne Hunter. You can go to Thrift Books and get a copy of it. There's also a teacher's manual that goes with it. I find that this workbook is really nice. And what I do with workbooks, because they have may have sections to fill out. What you would do to the parts that need to be filled out is make a copy. Most people have a copy machine or access to a copy machine. Make a copy of the worksheets so that you can use this several times or go over it each year. And these are classics. These are absolute classics. I really have not found anything that matches it. I will try to include some links of men on YouTube that are speaking to other men or young men about how to dress and how important it is. And also you do a great credit to when you dress well as a young man or boy, you're crediting your maker who made you carefully and deliberately. And you're also crediting Jesus Christ, you're crediting your parents, and you're crediting your country, and you're crediting the church that you go to. You're discrediting all of that when you don't care. And there was a doctor that I listened to one time years ago who had a question, and that was, why don't people in the West care about their clothes or what they look like? And he concluded that some of it had to do with nutrition, because if you don't feel good, it affects your thinking, and you don't want to dress. But I think that could be changed by just dressing well, and that the things that you eat would change too. You'd want more quality food. That's just my theory. Also, ladies, those of you who are at home, to be more careful in what you're wearing at home, to be careful when you go out. As one of the most helpful things is to take your daughters to a place where you can sit still and watch people go by, and then watch other people, what they're looking at as these people go by. Are they looking at the face of the person, or are they looking at something that is a large amount of bareness when they go by? And what kind of edification are you giving people by the way you dress? Now, if your children are very immature and tend to be silly, you don't want to do that. You can explain it to them at home. Because sometimes children that want attention will say, oh, someone's looking at that person, I should dress like that. And the idea is we are not attention seeking, except in the fact that we want the right kind of attention if someone's looking at us. So observe where other people's eyes go when you're out. So to edify means to encourage and build up. So with both your speech and your clothing, you can edify. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about clothing in a crisis. Everybody that's at home for some reason goes through, I don't know, more crisis because you are more alert to the countenance of your children and of your family, and to these stresses and strifes that your husband goes through, and how to dress in a crisis. This is the problem, is that there's a tendency to give up, to be depressed, and not to care what you have on, because it can really debilitate you when there's a home crisis, or when someone's not behaving well at home, or when there's a lot of complaining. That's not edifying, is it? You need to have a little class with them and teach them how to edify, and do comparisons. Which comment is edifying and which comment is critical? Now, of course, the world encourages criticism. That's called, what was it called? It was called constructive criticism. But the scriptures don't really back that up. It's the Christian's duty is to edify and make it easy for others to thrive and to be happy. And happiness is in my opinion, in my observation of the scriptures, happiness is a duty, because it shows gratitude for the life that we live. So now that I have said I'm going to talk about shepherds, this is going to be just really brief about shepherds. And those ladies at home, you have to be like a shepherd. You have a little flock to take care of. And even if they're not, even if they're a lot more than a little, and they're a lot older than little, you have, in essence, a pasture and a flock to take care of. And the pasture is your home. You want to keep it clean and free of debris, so that people don't injure themselves when they sit on your sofa or walk on your floor barefoot. So there's what shepherds used to do in the ancient times, is they used to clear the field, clear the little pasture. And it's based on Psalms 23. You can kind of analyze it, and that is, He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Well, the pasture would have to be clean and neat and safe, so that the sheep, when they laid down, would not be injured. So the shepherd would have to go and clear out some of the debris, anything that was sharp, and just watch out for any kind of thing that or creature that would injure their sheep. And if the sheep did get injured, they had a special salve that they used to put on it. And we always connect that to Scripture. Scripture is like a salve, that's comforting. And He leads me beside still waters. Well, in ancient times, those of you that have looked at this with your homeschool children, Psalms 23, you can look up all kinds of books and literature you can get, which help with understanding Psalms 23 in the ancient way. He leads me beside the still waters. Still waters are quiet and comforting, and so the shepherd apparently had to dam up a little bit of water so that the sheep could drink without too much commotion. Like a waterfall wouldn't be something that would calm a sheep, and you don't want the flock to start running wild and scared. So you would keep quietness in your home, and you would try to keep from exposing your family to the current political crisis. And just learn to laugh at it, because things usually turn out for the best, don't they? And just wait things out, and people will start complaining about the current political crisis, but it's not really good to expose your family to it, or to you to it. There's a lot to be done. You've got to be busy. You've got to make sure your house is in order, that you're able to prepare food, that you can sew a little bit, or you do something that's very creative, that you can guide your children and to be happy, and to learn how to occupy themselves, and to learn how to be creative and self-sufficient and resourceful. And so all of these things, you're going to have to find material on it, or you're going to have to just create your own and just teach your children from what you know. It's still better than anything out there. It's still better than anything anybody else can do. And then, of course, one of the reasons that the shepherd would make the sheep lie down, and I assume that he used his rod and his staff for that, is because sheep would just run ragged and they would not voluntarily always lay down. So he would have to make them lay down and settle down. That's kind of like when we make our kids take naps, isn't it? Our children didn't like naps, but I let them take a book with them, and I let them just lay there and be quiet, have something if they wanted to play with something, just to lay down there and not have any stress on them, not have anything that they had to do. And then the other thing that to be careful of is if in a flock there is tension surrounding it, and then there's a wolf walking around the flock, even if he isn't directly bothering them, if they sense it and they know it's there, they will be jittery and they will not eat. And if they do eat, they won't digest it very well. And I have heard or read that a fleece that's taken to market back in those days, the buyer could tell if the sheep had been under stress by the condition of the fleece and wouldn't buy it. So want to think about that as the condition of our families and your condition too. If you are uneasy all the time, you're not going to digest the Word of God very well. You're not even going to be able to focus on it. I don't know how many of you have ever been to a grocery store when you've been just right after you've been told something that's disturbing. You can't even read the label on the can you? Or on the box, or the price of something. So if there is any kind of agitation in the home, nobody's going to do well. They're not going to be able to settle down. They're not going to be able to read a story and feel good about it, and or watch a movie and be happy. They're always going to be upset, and you cannot allow this in your home. You're going to have to create an atmosphere, at least in one of your rooms, where you're not disturbed and where your children can be happy and not disturbed. And don't bring them up with the disturbance of the world, the constant disturbance of the world. Because you look, those of you who are vital, who are my age in their vital years, you look back when you were really young. Do you even remember every little thing? This was before they started broadcasting every 5 minutes, you know. We didn't have all that. We didn't grow up with all that disturbance. The schools exposed us to a lot of it, but we generally at home did not have all that kind of worry or disturbance. And that's why I say, try to live a life, live your best life, and live a life of edifying. Edify others and edify yourself by the way you dress, and by what you read and what you do and all of your activities. I also wanted to tell you about a book, and I have brought it here before, but for you who really are interested in homemaking, in a way you're living in a very high-class castle. If there's just you, you can do what you want with it, and you can put what you want in it and create your own schedule, and you're not putting a card in a time slot. And this was called The Butler's Guide to Running the Home. And I suppose that butlers are a lot like we are. We're in charge of many things. Many of us manage the money, look for sales, and enjoy getting bargains, and have worked. Think of your mothers, how many times they went to the grocery store or ordered clothing for you, or just the exhaustive amount of things that they did. And not only that, some of the women that I knew had to pick out a tractor for their husband, had to do all that while he was doing something else. I mean, just think of all the things that women have had to do. And it must have been somewhat like being a butler. And I'm sure they had to dress up. The butler and the household help that was hired, I'm sure they had to have a uniform and dress up and be clean and tidy. And so let your clothing say something of you and your values and your taste and your purpose in life. And it can either say that you care about yourself and you care about clothing, and you care about how you make what others might see. You don't want to spoil the view. And also, it can also say that you still have a great respect for life, for the life. People are always talking about life, the unborn child and everything, but what about us who are already born? What about us celebrating life and living while we live instead of being dead in our souls, and expressing ourselves through our clothing, not to make it an outrageous expression of tell-all and everything, but to be to hide some things. And I have told you before, that's one of the best ways to heal a mind that's swirling around is to talk less and tell less, and don't reveal everything about yourself. Well, it's the same with clothing. Cover more and don't reveal so much. Because it gives you dignity and gives you peace, and there'd be less nervousness if people would cover themselves more. So I want to read a little bit about running the home, because I think that the butlers probably were a lot like us. I'm trying to see what the date that this was written in. It looks like it was published in 1980, but it had previous publications. So this is called Running the Home. So I just want to read this part to you. The three most important qualities for running a home are punctuality, organization, and cleanliness. Well, I think that's the important thing about your clothing too, is neatness, organization, and cleanliness, and making things coordinate and match. And we've been somewhat shamed out of all this, haven't we? There was an era where the designers all said, we don't want any more matchy, and they made fun of us because we wanted our gloves and our shoes and our hats and our handbags to match. And we wanted to wear a blouse with a skirt that's somewhat coordinated with the color. And they made fun of us, and they came out with these outrageous designs that made no sense, but jolted our senses, unfortunately, and made us uneasy to look at it. But we don't have to worry about that, because if you're buying your clothes at the Walmart or the farm store or some other place, there are ways to make those things look nice. And the clothing that I'm going to show you on the blog today is the outfit I'm wearing that I did get at Walmart many years ago. And the secret to making these things last is in the washing machine, wash in cold water. It doesn't seem to cause as much wear and tear or beating up. And and just to treat everything nicely, and be careful what you wash it with, and so that you don't have rough things in with delicate things. And I think that you can go on YouTube and find out how to wash clothes, how to separate colors and kinds, and preserve your clothing. Now, I know some of you don't want to preserve your clothing because you can get awful tired of the same things, and you'd like, ladies especially, like new things. And I haven't had time to make new clothes lately, so I have been showing you things that you could buy, that I did buy some time ago at local places. So he says the three most important qualities for running a home are punctuality, organization, and cleanliness. If you master these, everything else should fall in place. And I heard an exercise person on one of the videos I watched a few years ago say, if you can master the morning, you will have control of the afternoon. That's interesting, isn't it? He was talking about, getting up and getting dressed and doing a few exercises. For me, the first step in running a house is to get up leisurely in the morning, as I believe in letting the day come to me rather than rushing about with the day. I've read this all to you before. My way, I start out with a contented mind rather than one that is in a state of confusion and unable to plan ahead. Yes, you have to be like a baby, like a child. If you ever observe babies, they wake up, they're in their little bed, and you go to observe them, and they'll open one eye, and they'll look around, and they'll close them again. They'll decide whether or not they want to come back into the real world, and they'll look around. Then they'll lay there, and they'll look around, get familiar with everything. Then they'll look at their hands, and they'll do this and this. And when they get good and ready, they'll make a big squall. They're finished, and they want to get out. And that's the way we should wake up. Should never just jump out of bed. It's bad for the brain. But you can still get up really early if you go to bed really early. And I have found the secret to that is just go lay down when you're tired, and you'll naturally wake up at the right time. So then he goes into plans and schedules, cleaning and polishing. So I want to read this to you because it's so Victorian. It's something that I would like to do. When he mentions how he met with the lady of the house at a certain time, and then they would discuss the day's schedule. She'd have her little notebook, he'd have his little notebook. And so I like to get up and sit in a little place with my notebook and act like I'm really in a high-end place. And I write down all these things that need to be done, and then I walk around with my notebook and my nose in the air, seeing how I'm going to get the lady of the house to do all this work. Of course, I never mind myself. I never obey myself. I'm always in terrible rebellion. But I'll read the list, and I'll say, who did that woman think she was telling me to do all this stuff? And if I didn't feel like doing it, I try not to resent it. In the great houses, the butler and the lady of the house always planned everything together. At the Mount, I think he's referring to something here that I didn't read about. He called it the Mount, a place that was similar to what we see sometimes in the old movies. And this is in the day when people called their residents by names, like I call mine the Manse, which was a name for preachers' homes in the old days, but also is short for mansion, I think. So we met in her study every morning at 10 o'clock to discuss the day's arrangements, which could take from 5 minutes to half an hour. She told me what each member of the family would be doing and what cars would be needed for whom and what time. I was informed how many people would be having lunch or dinner if guests were invited. If anyone important was coming, we discussed the menu. Now, I have been alone most of today. It's Thanksgiving Day, and I have been alone, but so I've had time to do this little video for you. And but in a few hours, I will not be alone, and a few people will be here. And I did go ahead and create a nice dinner for everyone, and I did it ahead of time. I did it yesterday and refrigerated it. All I have to do today is heat it up. It should be fine. And that way I didn't have to get up too early, and not a lot of pressure or exhaustion from it. So I'm going to just read a little bit more about the butler. And he said, my work didn't end with the morning meeting. I was asked to make arrangements for everything for the day down to the smallest detail. And that's what I'll do is on one side of my little list, I'll write down what I need to do. Then I'll write down what my husband needs to do because I'm doing so much of the driving now. And if he needs to go and get supplies for something, or he needs to drop by the post office, or he needs to go somewhere else and get some kind of tool or something like that, then I will write all that down, and I'll figure out my route in a very logistic way. Go here, stop here, and then go around here, and then just the most efficient way to do it. And so I have that all written down too. Fortunately, my memory is so well trained that I never have to write anything down. Just as I would go into a room and see at once if anything was out of place, I could remember every order I was giving without making note of it. Well, it's the same thing. You get used to your own home, and I've suggested when you do get out of bed, walk through your house with your cup of tea or whatever, and just walk through and look for things that need to be done. And I don't have to write them down, but sometimes, of course, it's necessary just because I want to tick them off and think that I have accomplished something. And of course, we're all doing this, not just for the material benefit or for the material goal, but because we want to edify, we want to build up, we want to create a home where everything works better. And I'll go through once in a while to see how things would serve us all better. Would it be better to move this and we could move around, we could walk around here, or is this in the way, or something like that? I always look for some kind of improvement. Sometime I am going to do a home tour video for you when I can figure it out, how I can get it all done at the same time. Anyone who is at all busy should have an engagement diary. You can't remember everything, and it's terrible to forget appointments. If you keep a desk diary and look at it every morning, it keeps you up to scratch. And if you are away from your desk and someone needs to know where you are, all they have to do is look at your little diary. Yeah, when we go missing, if we have these little diaries or lists, if we go missing and a bunch of things are ticked off, they can look at the next thing and find out what room you're in. Maybe you're in the laundry room or something. So ladies, I hope that this has been very helpful. I will be putting some pictures on the blog for you and show you some changes around here. And I wanted to tell you a couple of parables, modern day parables that used to appear in church bulletins years ago, and there were two of them, and it was about concerning the fact that people can get so busy with the study, knowledge, and paperwork of something that they don't do the something. And these two parables always struck me as very amusing, but it is a tendency. And I always remembered Jane Austen kind of made fun of this, and I'll tell you why. The first one was the parable of the shipwrecked people. And there was a little village where people watched out for shipwrecks and ran down to rescue the people and bring them up into a house, so that they could be safe. And it was so successful that other people found out about it and wanted to join them in this wonderful endeavor. And as more and more people started to watch out for these shipwrecked people and had great success in the rescue of them, more people wanted to make a society of it and began to bring, more food and things like that so they could have regular meetings even when there wasn't a shipwreck. And then they had to have a president, and then they had to have a vice president, and then they had to collect money, and they had to have a treasurer, and they had to have, and pretty soon the organization became more important than the job that they were trying to do. And while they could see ships out there that could be in danger of getting on the rocks, they would have to pass they would have to vote, and they would have to pass it all through this organization before anybody could actually launch a boat and go out and rescue them all. And it was you can find it online. It's the parable of the shipwrecked people or something like that. It's told in many different ways, sometimes with a lot of information, sometimes very simply. And so it reminded me of when you're homeschooling, and I'm homeschooling too, and I'm homeschooling you, you can read all about it. But even if you're teaching your children the parts of speech, such as verbs, or teaching them something that's on paper, adding, subtracting, or something, you need to get up and go do it the same day. Now, I just taught you what 1 and 1 is. I need 2 cans of, I need 2 bags of, I need you to go get me 2 bars of soap from the bathroom, and that way they can practice. If you're teaching them grammar, composition, or anything like that, and you're studying verbs or something like that, then after the lesson is over, you need to talk to each other using these words so that everything is turned into a practical application. So Then the other one was one that was wildly popular in church bulletins, and it was called The Parable of the Orange Groves. And it was about these beautiful orange groves in Florida, and people would pick oranges and enjoy them a lot, so that they wouldn't fall down on the ground and be useless. And so one time someone came into town and found that there were oranges all over the ground and no one had picked them up. Now this parable is told in many different ways. Sometimes it's told starting with the other end and coming to this point. But so a visitor said, "Why are there oranges on the ground? Don't you want to pick them up and use them?" And they said, "Well, we'd have to go to the orange board first," because apparently there had been a board formed to determine when the oranges would be plucked or whether they would be picked up or not, and who could do it, and you had to pass everything through this board. And so it just reminds me of, and of course the oranges all went to waste, because the whole purpose of the board in the first place was to help people get these oranges before they went to waste. And but it reminds me, there was something in one of the Jane Austen novels about it, and wasn't it Mrs. Who was it? Who was the preacher's wife that was excited about music? And I think their last name started with an E, wasn't it? And Emma was kind of making fun of them because she enjoyed, this preacher's wife enjoyed music, and so did Emma. And she said that the lady had the nerve to suggest that they form a musical club. So it must have been a problem, even back in the old days, that instead of really enjoying certain things, they have to form a board, they have to have bylaws and laws and things like that, and pretty soon it's no fun at all. And one time this lady I know that was really enjoying homeschooling was having her children give book reviews, and she was showing them how to do it, and they were having so much fun just in the family. And they had a visitor one time that thought it was a great idea and wanted her children to participate, and so they let them. And but the lady had more of a professional and secular view of it all, and wanted to form a more formal type of set of rules about how to have book reviews, and and it took all the fun out of it. So I just wanted to mention that. It's been on my mind lately, and I hope that you are all doing well, that you'll dress up and do your best today. A lot of us are home, and me especially. I've kind of quit going out. It doesn't have an allure for me to go anywhere except the Walmart and the Hobby Lobby anymore, in the grocery store are about my limit. But I want to be sure that that becomes an event for me, so that I will dress up and not go out looking all dried up and old and like I've got one foot in the grave. And I hope you will all remember that too, no matter how young you are, that you owe it to your Creator to glorify Him or reflect this beautiful earth around. Or even if you haven't got beauty around you, you can be the beautiful point of life. You can create that. So that's why when I take a picture for you, I do a teacup on that old worn out wood pile that we had, a stack of wood that nobody would use, and it's all dried out and not very pretty, but I like to put a fancy teacup on top of it just to give it some class. Okay, kids, I hope you have a lovely time, and I also want to remind you to stay close to Christ, and I'll see you next time. Bye.